In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Alright folks, this is Rick Robinson with you. I want to tell you about some friends of mine from a company called Security Enforcement Specialists. When I ran my security agency for 12 years, I worked with one of these partners on a daily basis. He's been involved in this agency now, and with his other partner, they do have over 30 years of experience in the private security industry. If you own a business and you need someone to keep you or your customers or residents safe, then I highly recommend contacting Security Enforcement Specialists today. Give them a call at 405-703-1796. Again, that's 405-703-1796. Again, tell them Rick from K98 Talk sent you. Like I said, if you need the help, they are here for you. So make sure that you go look them up, check them out, and see what they can do.
Wrong way. Welcome to the place.
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
I knew it was coming. I hadn't filed taxes since 1990.
All the IRS letters coming in added up to a nightmare.
To get up to like $68,000, my heart started beating fast. It's like, there's no way, man. I mean, I ain't going to be able to do this.
Then they stopped his paycheck.
So that's when I started making phone calls and found U.S. Tax Shield.
U.S. Tax Shield went to work immediately.
They just took the bull by the horns. What blew my mind is he called the IRS right then and there.
So why is U.S. Tax Shield A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau? Joe knows.
They saved me a ridiculous amount of money.
If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, choose the company Joe chose, U.S. Tax Shield.
It was the best decision I made. U.S. Tax Shield is the way to go. Life is good. Thank you, Lord.
Call 800-471-3287.
U.S. Tax Shield. Boo-rah. Yes.
800-471-3287. 800-471-3287.
The internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Whoa! Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get again.
We got another great show for you this week. Got Lou Esposito from Red Nation Rising Radio on the show with us. We're talking a little Scott Walker, a little Value Voter Summit, and a little bit about the Pope as well. So buckle up, because here we go.
Get ready to fight from within. You're about to go behind enemy lines on K98.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area. Requesting permission to engage. Over.
From the People's Republic of New York City, you're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Baradelli and Russ Gallo.
You are now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, everybody? Gene Baradelli here, and co-hosting with me this week, a very special guest. I've been a guest on her show many times over, and I'm happy to welcome her behind enemy lines from Red Nation Rising Radio, Lou Esposito. Lou, are you there?
I'm here, Gene, and it is great to be here.
Oh, it is my pleasure to have you on. It's only neighborly that I have you come on our show. Sorry for the mess and all. I know you keep a much better house than we do.
No, it's great. It's great. It's my pleasure. It's always fun to talk to you.
Oh, thank you so much. So listen, before we get started with the whole show and everything, tell everybody about Red Nation Rising Radio. I want to make sure everybody knows who you are, where you come from, and what you do. Because believe it or not, folks, even though this is a fine Southern belle, and I'm a dirty old New Yorker, we actually do have a lot in common, right, Lou?
We have a lot in common, and I actually have a guy in my house that sounds a lot like you, even though, you know, I won't tell you where he's from because you'd probably be offended. You're from different sides of the, you know, that area, that metro area. But, yeah, we have a lot in commmen. People might be surprised.
Well, I think people might be surprised that... Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I wasn't answering your question. Red Nation Rising, if you haven't seen the hashtag, then you probably haven't been on Twitter lately. And we also have a radio show. All of our Twitter family joins us, and we have lots of listeners, lots of people in the chat room, and it's always lots of fun. The K98 Talk, and we have had the pleasure of having you on the show a few times, and it definitely was our pleasure.
Oh, it's absolutely great. Hey, Lou, do me a favor. I'm going to need you to call back on Skype because I'm getting feedback from our listeners saying that you're a little low. So call us back on Skype, and we'll talk on there, okay?
All right, I will be right back with you.
All right, great. Thanks, Lou. We'll have you back on in a jiffy. So while we're waiting for Lou to come back on, just to let everybody know what we'll be talking about tonight. Of course, those of you who may have heard our show from Cafe on the Hill in beautiful Gravesend, Brooklyn, New York. And I hope you enjoyed that. We're going to go through a little bit of the debate. Now that we're a week away from the last debate, let's go back and reset and see what really happened here. We'll be talking about that with Lou as well later on. After that, we're going to talk a little bit about Pope Francis's visit to the States. And, there's, to me, there really should be a lot of controversy here with the Pope coming to the States. But it seems like some people want to make an issue of some of the Pope's political positions, and we'll get into that as well. And then later on in the show, I'll be talking to you about the Value Voters Summit, which myself and Vito and a couple of others of our warriors here on We Are America Radio will be attending, and we're going to be getting some great audio and video from there for you in the time to come here. It's going to be a really, really good show as soon as I get Lou on. So here's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, I'm going to get Lou on the horn with us, and we'll go through all that stuff and more right here behind me lines. We'll be back right after these brief words.
Are you among the 64% of Americans who believe our country is going in the wrong direction? If yes, then eVoiceAmerica.com is the political take-action site we've all been waiting for. And it's really free. eVoice America provides your personal list of elected reps every time you log on. This makes it so easy to email your opinions and e-votes on top issues directly to each of our D.C. elected representatives. eVoice then publishes our e-vote majority percentages on top issues to each member of Congress and the media. Now, for the first time in history, we can know what millions of American citizens are telling Congress. No more gridlock. Join the new American majority using eVoiceAmerica.com, putting Americans in control of Congress. Visit eVoiceAmerica.com today. It's free and easy to use. That's eVoiceAmerica.com.
Hey everybody, Gene Baradelli here, and for those of you who know me, who have met me at a conference around the country, or have just even seen my photo online, you know I'm not the most fit guy in the world. In fact, exercise and I are not good friends at all. But I'm starting to do it more, and I'm starting to eat right, and I'm going to start taking Diabetics from Green Turtle Bay Vitamin Company. Diabetics is the first FDA-authorized multivitamin supplement for diabetics and for those like me who are predisposed to diabetes and have difficulty absorbing nutrients. Diabetics contains ingredients not included in multivitamin formulas for the general public and is unique for people like me who have diabetes running in their family. So I'm going to start eating right, I'm going to start taking Diabetics, I'm going to start exercising more, and I'm going to take you on this journey with me. That's Diabetics with a K, one of the many great supplements from Green Turtle Bay Vitamin Company. For more information, check out www.energywave.com.
Behind Enemy Lines. Back on the air.
Gene Baradelli back behind enemy lines. We're getting Lou back on the line here in a second. And folks, while I'm waiting for Lou to call back in, be sure to check out www.behindenemylinesradio.us, our official blog, for a lot of great articles and stuff. We have a lot of great content up there. And also check us out on Facebook and Twitter at BEL_radio. Bringing Lou back on right now. Lou, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me any better, Gene?
I hear you just fine here, and if I can hear you a lot better, I'm sure our listeners can as well. So, Lou,
okay, that's
first
good.
thing I gotta say. Yeah, go ahead. It's okay. Don't worry. Listen, we only have a couple of listeners anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
So, listen, first thing I want to get into with you. We come out of the debate and we lose Scott Walker from the field, right? But isn't it amazing that the Lindsey Grahams and the Jim Gilmores and the George Patakis of the world remain, right?
Right.
Dynamite drop in there, Lou. Great job.
Yeah.
Everyone can hear you, by the way, so you're good.
Okay, good. It's crazy of all the people to lose with $10 million in his bank account. Why Scott Walker?
You know what? I don't know why Scott Walker at this point. But if we were going on sheer qualifications, sheer getting the job done, and going on your record, wouldn't you think that Rick Perry and Scott Walker would be towards the end of the primary season, not at the beginning?
Yeah, that was the hope, right? You know, that the good conservatives were going to stay in the race, that they were, you know, the Scott Walkers and the Rick Perrys, that those were going to be the guys that were going to last. And, you know, I'm waiting for you to tell me what happened, Gene, because I haven't figured it out yet.
Well, we have a suggestion from a chat room. And by the way, folks, we have a live chat going on. If you go to www.behindenemylinesradio.us, during our live show here on We Are America Radio, the #1 political talk station on live365.com, we got a chat room on our page on the Listen Live button. Click there and join the chat with us. We got a couple of chatters in there, and one of them is saying that Scott Walker is out of the race because he is boring. Now, that could be a reflection of what Donald Trump has brought to the race and sort of that bombastic behavior, or it could be just that he wasn't resonating across the nation the way that he does in Wisconsin. What do you think, Lou? Is he just boring?
Yeah, I think that I think he didn't want to get in the mud, and that in this race, like he said, was what Donald has brought to the race. Makes you look boring if you don't want to get in the mud.
It's true. But you know what? I think that there hasn't been success though when you get into the mud with Donald Trump. I mean, basically one out of the field, and of course we're talking about Carly Fiorina. It's probably the only one that has gotten into it with Trump and come out unscathed. Could it be that go ahead. What do you give me your thoughts on that?
Another outsider. I think that's what you were going to say, isn't it?
I was going to say it may be the year of the outsider, and that's what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
But then, if it's the year of the outsider, why, in the name of all that is good in the world, do we still have to hear about Jim Gilmore, George Pataki, Governor Kasich, and you know, Lindsey Graham? All these people that, you know, are probably the ultimate insiders in politics, based on their longevity and based upon their records. Why are they still hanging around?
I think it's, unfortunately, I think it's that establishment thing. I think it's about knowing in the beginning or being a little bit more savvy about how to put a campaign together and having those donor connections, unfortunately.
Well, it's definitely that, and I think we're also seeing, and I'm going to steal another comment from the chat room, they're saying that although Walker's Super PAC had money, he didn't have enough for his campaign, and I'll just throw a caveat in there. He had so many paid full-time staffers just leeching off of that money. Add the lack of personal money in the campaign to some subpar debate performances, and you have a campaign that just dried up and has to go away.
Yeah, it was kind of the trifecta of campaign fails because he built too large an organization. And like you said, staffers sucking off the money. And he wasn't exciting enough. He didn't generate enough excitement. And He looked really bad in those debates. The second one, you forgot, you said on my radio show, you forgot he was there.
At one point, he was off after his little dust-up with Trump, and after Carly had her moment, he was off mic for at least a half hour. And that's not good when you're on a debate stage with 11 people. But let's just rewind back to the winter of this year. Scott Walker was everyone's darling. He was the guy that was polling high in the straw poll at CPAC. He was the guy that everyone was waiting for to get in. He was the guy that the Dems had created a super PAC specifically to combat. And then a month ago, the debates start, he drops, and the super PAC that's up again, that was made for him, basically says, yeah, we have no reason to be anymore. He's taking care of himself. He's gone. It's so amazing how quickly the worm turns in presidential politics. But you know what? If we could give a final epitaph to the Walker campaign, he peaked too soon, I think. And I hope you agree with me on this, Lou. He peaked too soon. He didn't run the same campaigns that he ran in Wisconsin. I didn't see the same fire. And ultimately, he just blended into the background, and that's why he is now returning back to Wisconsin.
I totally agree. I think that's exactly what happened.
Okay,
yeah,
so
it's
now...
a lesson.
Oh, it's definitely a lesson. It's definitely a cautionary tale. As are most of these campaigns, there's always going to be one or two reasons for it. But now let's play a little bit of Miss Cleo, okay? Let's start figuring out who's next. Who's the next one to go from this field, and when do you think they're going to go? What is your grand prediction? Remember, this is on tape, and I'm going to be playing this over and over again if you're wrong. Tell me who's next.
Because I know it's not going to be who I'd like for it to be, and it's going to be the person that I don't want it to be. It's probably going to be Rand Paul.
Interesting, and why do you say that?
Because he's fizzled. I mean, he has the, God love him, he doesn't have the outsider thing, but he also has the surgeon thing. And, you love these guys, but they have to be calm 99.9% of the time. And they're sometimes too calm for politics. I think Ben Carson's going to have the same problem.
It's an interesting call. I don't know about Paul's money situation. Maybe some people in the chat room can help me with that. I don't know if he has the dough to go. But I think Rand Paul is one of those that should be hanging around a little bit because there really isn't a libertarian wing that is merging into this race. I kind of look at this race, and I've said this on past shows, as a 4-lane highway merging into 1 lane by the time you get to the convention. You have the establishment lane, the Tea Party lane, the libertarian lane, and the social conservative lane. Rand Paul should be owning the libertarian lane. He shouldn't be polling below 1% or wherever he's at right now. He should be taking all these Liberty Republicans, and he should be building that coalition for him. And I don't see him doing it. Instead, I see him getting down to the mud with Donald Trump, which, again, you want to talk about cautionary tales. Don't get into the mud with Donald Trump because that's where Trump lives. So I hope Rand Paul is next. As far as my prediction goes for who's next, it's a tough one, man. But if there was ever a candidate on the main stage, at least, that to me is not connecting, it's Governor Huckabee. And I don't see him hanging around, but for his social conservative credentials, which have him in the middle of the polls right now. He's riding that wave of that lane, basically, that social conservative lane, and he's probably going to hang around a while, but he really should be one from the main stage to go. As far as the other stage goes, all the ones I mentioned, Graham, Pataki, Gilmore, what are you doing? Even Governor Jindal to some extent. What are you guys doing in here? It's time to move on. As Governor Walker said, time to move off the stage. Lou, what do you think of what Governor Huckabee has been doing?
I think you hit on something with him being in the social conservative. He has that lane, right? And immediately I thought of Delaware. Because you start out with 5 lanes, but by the time you get to the end of Delaware, which is not very far, just like 1 lane for whatever reason, there's never more than 1 lane open in Delaware. But he's got that lane, that social conservative. He's got the social conservative lane, and that's a lane that Donald can't really get into. So he's not taking anything away from Huckabee, and that's why I think Huckabee is where he is in the polls. Rand Paul, on the other hand, his lane is, I mean, you know, Donald is the trucker coming over into his lane, like forcing him out. In my mind, I think that Donald can take that libertarian contingency away from Rand Paul much more easily than he can take the social conservative from Huckabee. The other guys that you were talking about, I can't figure it out. I don't know what they're doing there. I don't know, you know, it's a why are you here situation.
You know, I think I'm going to start calling them the Vaudeville Act, because they've been in politics since vaudeville, basically. And, you know, they got a nice little, it used to be a quartet, now it's not so much a quartet. They got the, you know, Gilmore, Graham, and Pataki. You know, I expect them, you know, to wear the straw hats next to the barbershop singing, you know, whatever. I can't think of a barbershop quartet song. But whatever. You get what I'm saying. They've been around for so long, and they've been saying that, you know, they're the change that we need, but meanwhile, they've been around since the 90s. Why didn't you change anything while you were around? And they're just, you know, and they're just hanging around. I think they're just hanging around to see all these other bigger names fall off and hope that they get something. Lou, is there something to be said for hanging around long enough to wait for one of the larger candidates with the largest share to just make a mistake and scoop up the crumbs at the end?
I think there is for certain people, but I don't think that Kasich and Pataki are those people. I think for Kasich and Pataki, there's something to be said for hanging around long enough to ensure yourself a cabinet post.
And that could be something as well that I think they're hanging around for. They want to show that they have some sort of sway over the electorate, that when the nominee is chosen, they'll be needed as a surrogate and then earn a spot in some administration. But when we talk about getting the crumbs from somebody else, I got to think of Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz has been kind of laying low, and I think that he's one of the people that is waiting for Trump to make a mistake, because he knows that he's going to get the benefit, probably the most, out of any candidate if Trump goes down in flames at any point. Cruz is one of those candidates waiting for the crumbs. I think Santorum is waiting for Huckabee to make a mistake so he can kind of jump into that, you know, social conservative lane. Are we seeing candidates that are just too much in the moment and not playing a long enough game to go forward in this really marathon, not sprint, of an election 2016 cycle?
I think we are, and I think when you have this many candidates in the race that you're always going to see that. I think that dynamic is always going to be there when you have this many candidates, that one guy is going to look at another guy's bigger percentage and say, but when they can't raise the money and I can, I'm going to get that percentage from them. Or when they do something stupid and they're out of here, I'm going to get that percentage for them. So yeah, I think to that extent, a lot of them are playing a waiting game.
I just wonder how long they have to wait before something big breaks in the race. I think Carly Fiorina had a big breakout moment. You know, let's talk about a little bit of the positive. Carly had a big breakout moment. I think that Carson, as I mentioned on your show, is having his own anti-Trump resurgence, and the fact that he's shown himself to kind of be the opposite of what Trump is, and he has people behind him on that. Who gets the next breakout moment now, Lou? We saw Carly, we see Carson. Who's going to be the next, as we like to call them, flavor of the month, that's going to have their moment?
That's a really good question. I kind of think that we're going to see Carly break out again, to the extent that she's going to show she had something to prove this time, and I almost feel like next time she's going to show us her Reagan side, because I think that it's there. And you heard me say, I'm waiting for Reagan. That is what I want to see one of these candidates for Tom. My gut tells me it's going to be her, but somebody's going to realize that that's what they need to do to win.
I tend to agree, although I think if you're talking about a person with presidential gravitas, especially during the debates, that to me is Ted Cruz, but also Marco Rubio seems to be gaining a little bit of momentum as well.
I wouldn't disagree with that, and there's some interesting things going on with Rubio, too. You can almost always tell who is gaining momentum by who the Democrats are attacking. And then some people came, sometimes it's the Trump people attacking them, but there were some attacks that came out against Rubio today, and you just look at them and go, oh, okay, well, he must be picking up some steam.
Yeah, you only get flack when you're over the target, right? So maybe Rubio is starting to up his visibility. I know that the poll in Florida has him ahead of Jeb now. There's a name we haven't talked about yet, who's supposed to be the preeminent, who's supposed to be the candidate, who's supposed to be the man with the plan that the establishment loves, supposed to be the man that has the 50-state operation, the man with all the money. Jeb Bush seems to be in some sort of limbo right now. He wants to break out from being conservative, being conservative. He wants to break out from being looked at as an establishment, quote-unquote, rhino. I hear you laughing there, by the way. That was a heck of a slip-up by me. But he wants to be known as his own man, yet he's the Bush in the race. You know, he has that baggage with him. And that came out during the second debate, didn't it, Lou?
It did, and I think the last time that we talked, we called it a three-peat, and nobody wants a three-peat. Because as you pointed out, our last two presidents were named Bush. Our last two Republican presidents were named Bush. Why would we want a third Republican president in a row named Bush? And I think that, that's probably not the only thing that's hurting him. It is the year of the outsider, and he certainly is not an outsider. And people are looking for energy and excitement, and he just doesn't have it. So again, another trifecta. He's just not there.
Absolutely. Okay, so here's what we're going to do now. We're going to take another short break. Lou, I don't know if you know this, but we actually give equal time to the Democrats on our show, believe it or not. We're going to let the Reverend Al take it from here and school you guys on how to talk properly. But until then, stick around. When we come back, we'll be talking about the papal visit, a little preview of Value Voter Summit, and maybe we'll do a little buffoon of the week as well. Gene and Lou, Behind Enemy Lines, will be back right after these brief words.
Who might you save?
Your mother, your father, your husband, uncle, aunt, son.
Learn FAST, F-A-S-T, the sudden signs of a stroke, and you could save
your friend, teacher, boss.
F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. F-A-S-T. That's F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. The sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in the recovery of
your neighbor, the waiter, grandmother, grandfather.
So learn FAST, the sudden signs of a stroke, then pass it on, because you never know who might save you.
Your wife, your colleague.
Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
The show will be right back. But first, a word from Al Sharpton.
Good evening, Rev. Thanks
Good evening,
to
Rev.
you, Ed. Is this Groundhog Day 2? We are watching that was Attorney General Eric Holder, ABDs, about some Republicans at home are already beating the drums of war. Today, the Pentagon refuted that claim. And he said the American people do not want him to, quote, dwindling, they do not want him dwindling his thumbs. You can get a gig as a contortionist. Intravenous fluids and pills coated with gelatin. We don't leave our women or men in uniform behind. It's a monument to the hubris of Dick Cheney, Representative Raul Labrador. Years of abuse. I personally apologize to Mr. Peebles. Just ask to soon-to-be former congressman. Democrats are outright jitty. CIA's counterterrorism center. Veteran Affairs Secretary Shinseki. Why do I always mess up his name? Shinseki. I love my critics to have fun with that.
Politics Nation with the Reverend Al Sharpton starts right now. Good evening, Rev.
Good evening, Dr. Dyson.
But wait, there's more.
And we will much about that be committed. So there's no real conflict. Michael Druniak, including Lincoln himself, Daniel Day-Lewis. Behind Monica Lewinsky, the one and only Trey Songz is here. But Allison Lundergan Grimes, Gina De Jesus, and Gina De Jesus, Tea Party challenger Matt Bivens. People don't want to have their Social Security overall. The Republican savior, Mark Rubio's big night in evolution and Galileo. I mean, this whole thing of Galileo. America's changed. Unless IT and Skillets, President Putin doing something similar back in, it won't change this fundamental fact about the GOP. Just how absurd these attacks is. Nearly 6 months after the dangerous traffic jam, the Thai military says, my friend for many years, Ilyana Van Zandt. There's nothing there.
And all we can get is an internet show? Let's get back to it.
Gene Baradelli behind enemy lines. And by the way, Lou, I know nobody, well, not nobody, but the people before when we were listening to the beginning of the show may have missed the plugs about you. Tell everybody about Red Nation Rising Radio, when it's on, how they can get in touch with you, and all that fun stuff.
So, Red Nation Rising, most people, hopefully your Twitter fans at least know, it's a hashtag on Twitter. Been around for about 2.5 years. Millions of impressions a week, and we also have a radio show. Our chat room's very active because we have all those Twitter listeners. We have great guests, including you a couple of times, and it's Thursday night, K98 Talk, 8 p.m., and we let the chat room ask a lot of the questions, as many as they want to ask. We'll ask the guest, whoever that might be, and we've got Cameron Gray coming up this Thursday, so tomorrow night, 8 p.m.
So Thursday, 8
Thanks for letting me plug that
Gray
again.
from NRA on K98. So definitely check it out, and check it out on podcast on Spreaker, on Red Nation Rising. And when you're on Twitter, when you're not doing BEL_radio, check out hashtag Red Nation Rising. A lot of great conservatives and grassroots people out there, all banding together to try to make a difference in the election 2016 cycle. Lou, we're going to shift topics right now, and we're going to talk about what's happening this week on the East Coast. Well, and currently, as of right now, I believe he is in the United States. Pope Francis is here. I believe he's in Washington, going to be heading to the People's Republic of New York City in the near future. And he's going around, and I got to tell you, the tickets for this event are hotter than One Direction, or whatever the boy band of the day is right now. It is heartening to see so many people flocking to see the Pope in America.
It is, but I can't remember that ever not being the case, Gene. Right?
No, and that's true. I mean, but I gotta say, there wasn't as much excitement when Pope Benedict came to America. I think the last Pope was, John Paul II was the one that brought this sort of feelings of, the feels, the love, the energy, the happiness, the peace. You didn't really get that too much from Pope Benedict, I don't think.
No,
I see a comment in the chat room saying that Pope Frankie is a mensch. And for those of you who are listening to this on podcast, we hope that everybody in the People's Republic of New York City and around the nation and the world had an easy fast during Yom Kippur. And to those listeners out there, I hope everyone had a solemn and blessed holiday. But the thing about this Pope, First of all, let me go on record. I love the guy. I think that he's a breath of fresh air to the papacy and what he brings. I see a lot of young people excited about being Catholic again. And that to me is a very good thing, no matter what his views are politically. But now that I've said that, his views politically do rub people the wrong way sometimes, Lou.
Well, you and I know as Catholics that his views politically really don't matter that much. That it's his view on the doctrine, it's his view on the faith that matters. That's where his infallibility kicks in, and not on climate change.
Absolutely, but that, the Pope will be going to address a joint session of Congress. And I gotta ask, is this proper for the Pope to address Congress and talk about a number of issues? I mean, I ask this in the context of, we know where he's from and what his upbringing is and the environment in which which influenced his life and his views, and that is, in South America, where it's not really the same political culture as it is here. Should he be bringing those, I'll say it, more progressive leftist views to give, those in Congress a little more oomph to kind of block whatever the conservative movement agenda is these days?
So what I'd like to see, I'm just going to tell you what I'd like to see from the Pope, is for him to turn those, what many people consider in this country, especially those liberal political views, into humanitarian views and project those toward Catholic charities rather than toward the UN or governments on the international stage. Personally, I think that's the Pope's role. However, the message would still be the same. And who's to say that that's not really what he's trying to do? I don't know that this guy really understands personally what he's doing. So I would look to especially, within the international leadership and the state leadership of the Vatican, for one thing, and then the UCCB on for you non-Catholics, the Conference of Catholic Bishops, who are his hosts. On the other hand, to really kind of question them, what were you thinking letting this happen? Because one, you should know better, but then he is the Pope, so basically what he wants to happen happens. So it's kind of hard to say, And as a Catholic, Gene, it's hard to question the Pope. You think, okay, well, I don't really agree, but, maybe he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, who am I to tell the pontiff what
Right.
to believe and what not to believe? But at the same time, let me put it this way: I'm a cafeteria Catholic. I'll show up on the major holidays, Easter, Christmas. I'll go to the major masses, especially the ones where the plenary indulgence is granted, and you get to walk out clean. That's what's appealing to me. But at the same, so when the Pope comes to America, what I want to hear from the Pope is a message of peace, a message of faith, and I want people to walk out inspired to do good in the world. Not necessarily to walk out and think, wow, we really need to get on that climate change thing. I think that's the role of the Pope. The Pope is there to inspire people to go out into the world and do good deeds and do good things. Not
and
to say...
No, that's exactly the humanitarian message that I was talking about. Inspire Catholics to do good, that inspires people to be Catholic.
Absolutely. And on the same token, while I don't want to hear the Pope talking about, climate control, I may want him to weigh in on funding abortions, because that's something that, deals with the sanctity and the dignity of human life. And I may want to hear the spiritual views on that. Not necessarily the political rancor and saying where the money shouldn't go, but I do want to hear a message of that life itself is sacred and should be preserved at all costs. And, give a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge to, what's going on in this nation. And but I don't want to hear, I don't want to hear that he was a chemistry teacher in his native land, and I don't want to hear that he's an expert on science, and I don't want to hear things that are out of his lane. And he may know, and listen, I'm an attorney. You don't want to hear me talking about engineering. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that type of statement I'm trying to make.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. And I mean, he is, like you say, he's the pontiff. We want to hear what he has to say about our faith more than anything. As Catholics, you want to hear messages of faith and hope and charity from the Pope. And I think that when he entangles those other things with the church, it almost, it almost recalls for me some of the not great things that have happened in the church were always because politics and the church were too entwined. So it's a little bit concerning from that perspective, but overall, I would look at the UCCB, the Council of Bishops, and say, what were you thinking? Why did you agree to allow him to come here and be a guest at the White House, which supposedly is going to have tons of people that don't agree with him? They basically set up a lobby. Well, and Catholic Online actually had some good things to say about, why bring the pontiff to America to meet with people that are against everything that he is for and for everything that he's against? Are they there to lobby him to try to change his mind? Well, good luck with that. They obviously don't know. But you also mentioned John Paul II. That's the kind of messages that he brought all over the world were the ones that we really want to hear from the Pope, which is instead of going to Cuba and not meeting with dissidents and pretending that there weren't any, to stand up and say, treat these people the way they should be treated, because this is what is inhumane. So it's confusing for us, I think.
I think for me, what I'm most concerned about is the Pope becoming a political pawn in U.S. politics. I don't want the Pope to be the reason why Democrats will start turning to conservatives to say, hey, you see, the Pope is okay with this, you should be for this and change your position. And I don't want to see conservatives going to Democrats saying, see, this shouldn't be funded because the Pope said so. The Pope's message should not be politicized. You know what? I kind of disagree on one thing you said, that about the Pope should be, what were the cardinals thinking about, by letting the Pope do this or do that. I think the Pope should meet with everybody. I think the Pope should talk to everybody. I think that the Pope should never be afraid to talk to anybody.
Right. He's not, though. He's not meeting with everybody. They've basically pretty much controlled who he's meeting with and who they want him to meet with. Just like in Cuba. He didn't meet with any dissidents in Cuba. That was, disturbing. The Pope always meets with the religious dissidents in Cuba. That was disturbing. I think that probably is what drew me more than anything. But I think you're right. He should never be used as a political pawn. Religion should never be used as a political pawn. But boy, I can't remember, certainly not in my lifetime, has it ever been so much a part of just political arguments and debates and as it is now.
Which leads me to the ultimate use of religion in politics, to me at least, on the conservative side, and that's the Value Voters Summit coming up in Washington, D.C. this week. Programming note for everybody, definitely check out We Are America Radio on Friday and Saturday during the day with live coverage from the Value Voters Summit. There'll be interviews with prominent guests and dignitaries, possibly even some presidential candidates. And definitely check back at www.BehindEnemyLinesRadio.us as well, because we're going to be at Value Voters Summit, and we're going to be letting you know what's going on with some coverage and maybe some interesting internet tools like Periscope or Google Hangout or something like that. We're going to try and experiment with a couple of things while we're there, and it should be a blast. But in talking about using religion for political purposes, I think that religion should inform your political beliefs if that is a part of your life, and that's fine. But to cater to a wing regarding social policy, it starts getting a little dangerous, because that's where the intersection of religion and politics is, and that's kind of where you have to walk a fine line, Lou. I know that we talked about we don't want the Pope being over-politicized, but I don't want politics to be over-religiousized either.
Me either. And that's always been my argument with gay marriage. And Rick Grinnell put it one day better than I ever could. And so I repeat what he says. It really needs to be detangled, and there are so many things that need to be detangled and with religion and politics. But it doesn't mean that you, like you said, your faith doesn't drive the way that you feel and the way that you see politics. It always does. It absolutely does. It's the reason that, my ideology is what it is, which is pretty unique and really can't be pigeonholed, but it drives what you do, and it should. You should vote on your values. Otherwise, what are you voting on? What are you really using to make the decisions that you make?
And I agree that you vote on your values. I totally agree with that. I just don't want one person's values overriding another person's values. I mean, listen, there are many hosts here on We Are America Radio and across the conservative talkscape that rail on Islam. And I think that in that case, Islam becomes more of a touchy subject because there's more of a political nature to it than there is to other religions. In a negative way, not so much in a positive way. There is more of an anarchist, barbaristic nature to Islam than there is to Judaism or there is to Western religion. But at the same time, you have about 7, maybe even 10 presidential candidates going to Value Voters Summit, and many of them not informed by their faith about their politics, but we'll be talking about faith. And I'm wondering to myself, man, what is Donald Trump going to say about social policy and religious freedom and all this stuff? This isn't exactly what what I think, in my opinion, it's going to be pandering. It's not going to be real. It's going to be playing to the crowd, which is what candidates do. I can think of 2 candidates, or 3 candidates really, that wear their religion on their sleeve. Does Value Voters help inform the social conservative as to who they should vote for? Or is it just another one of these bully pulpits, and that candidates use to snag votes? I'm really torn as to what this is.
Well, that's a really, really good question, and I think it's a really good point. And there are lots of, opportunities and groups that do exactly that. And, that's what they believe in. Nobody's going to begrudge them that opportunity, but I think that as voters, individually, that's where we have to decide. He may not, what is important and what are we voting on? We might be voting because someone's values match ours and their beliefs match ours, but not because they're one religion or another. And a great example of that is Mitt Romney. When he ran, a lot of the conversation around him was, but he's Mormon. Well, so what if he's Mormon?
Absolutely. There's a great point right there. How many people criticized Mitt Romney's religious beliefs and use that as a reason not to vote for him? I can think of 3 candidates right now, to me, that is that really wear their beliefs on their sleeve, and that to me is Governor Huckabee, Senator Santorum, and Governor Jindal. I think when they'll be speaking from the heart. I think they'll be speaking from, this is their wheelhouse. This is what they are known to do. This is really those who believe strongly in their faith. Everyone else, to me, I know Dr. Carson's probably going to say something about it. Trump, I don't know. I mean, he talks about being religious, but says it's private and personal. Well, I guess we'll see how private and personal it is when he's at the Value Voters Summit. But
right now,
my concern is, go ahead. Earlier about Carson.
Carly and Carson I've both heard talk about their faith driving what they do and how they feel about politics. So I don't know about wheelhouse, like you were talking about the other two. It really being their wheelhouse is probably not quite their wheelhouse, but they might be a little more comfortable with it.
Absolutely. What I'm looking forward to seeing are not really the major speeches when I go to Value Voters. Value Voters to me is a great place for social conservatives to meet up and be comfortable in their own skin. And I want to see what that looks like again. When I was there last year, I got to see a lot of that firsthand and people being proud to talk about their beliefs openly. Because a lot of times, and I think this has to do a lot to the idea of political correctness and tolerance from the left, is that you're told, unless you are Muslim, or unless you are something of what I would not call a mainstream religion, you're really told not to speak about your religion or to be so proud of it. It's more of a family thing, and it's not something to try to, quote-unquote, impose on people. It's nice at Value Voters Summit to see people being proud of who they are in their social conservative beliefs and being proud that comes from their traditional religious background. It's nice to see genuineness when it comes to the social conservative wing of the party, and not just people coming around and saying, "Oh, hey, here's a cross with an American flag on it. I'm socially conservative."
I think that's a really great point, and you said something really. You brushed over it quickly, but it was really kind of profound, which that Christianity is almost an imposition for people, whereas other religions are they're free to be expressed. But if you express your Christianity, you're imposing on someone.
It does feel that way, but so basically, folks, we're going to D.C. Myself, Vito, and our resident New York politic Mona Salama. We're all going to be going down to Value Voters Summit. We're going to be bringing you some of the best of the summit, some of the quirkiness of the summit, and we're going to be bringing it to you on social media. So definitely check out all of our social media accounts on Facebook and Twitter, and check the blog at www.BehindEnemyLinesRadio.us for a whole lot of news, views, and information from the Value Voters Summit in Washington, D.C. We got about 5 minutes left in the show, Lou. I want to thank you so much for coming on with us. It's been a pleasure to welcome you into my house the way that I was welcomed into your house. But now it's time to introduce you to a tradition. We're going to introduce you to a new tradition. Well, not new to you probably, called Buffoon of the Week. This is the portion of the show, folks, where we look at the news and we highlight something so monumentally stupid that we must bring it up and ridicule it in a way to try to bring balance to the world, to kind of cancel out the buffoonish behavior of others. Now, Lou, I know before the show we talked briefly about Buffoon of the Week. If you don't have one, I have two we can do. So just let me know.
I got one. I got one.
All right.
Chuck Todd. Yeah, Chuck Todd for starting the whole hypothetical, what about a Muslim president question. That, first of all, is the most ridiculous question, hypothetical, I've ever heard in a presidential race. And once he started it, and the other buffoons or the rest of the media, because it's like that question went viral. And now everyone has been asked, and they've been asked in any number of formats. Carly got asked on the Tonight Show. Ted Cruz got asked on one of the other late night shows, the one that Colbert does now, late night, the old Letterman show. And Chuck started the whole thing, asking Ben Carson. And then they edited and re-edited his answer so often, nobody's really sure exactly what he said. You have to go back and watch the whole thing to see what they said. So Chuck Todd, and I think he's with MSNBC, right? That's the buffoon of the week as far as I'm concerned.
All right. That's a great pick. And I have one for this week as well. It's a little more local than I normally like to do. But once I saw this, I said to myself, God, that is your buffoon of the week. And it's New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. And the reason why... Oh, yes. And the reason why, for all our listeners out there, is this buffoon thinks that he's doing such a good job with the People's Republic of New York City. Nobody else does, but he thinks he's doing so darn gosh good that he wants a raise. He is put in for some legislation to give himself and other people in government a raise. Now, listen, I was not a huge fan of Mike Bloomberg, but he did do the job for $1 a year. Now de Blasio wants, his first term isn't even over yet. I mean, New York City's almost destroyed the way it is right now. He wants a raise. Well, gee, Bill, I think you should come to us and tell us exactly what you did to deserve a raise from us. I mean, we're already one of the most taxed cities in the nation. We've seen the city, especially the quality of life in the city, take a downturn since your administration started. I'm sorry, pal. You're a buffoon for even thinking about it. And that's my pick. What we're going to do, Lou, we're going to put the two choices up on our blog, and our fans get to vote, and we find out the winner next week. Who you got, America? Is it Chuck Todd, or is it Bill de Blasio? Who's this week Buffoon of the Week? You tell us. Voting starts tomorrow on www.BehindEnemyLinesRadio.us. And by the way, Lou, my honorable mention for Buffoon of the Week this week would have been all the people taking bear selfies out in the world. Have you seen this, by the way? People going out into the wilderness, they find a bear, and instead of running from it, they turn around and they take a selfie. Come on, America, what are you thinking? And these are the people picking on next president, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. These are the people picking our next president, but it's no stupider than trying to take a selfie with a rattlesnake.
Oh, you saw that guy too, right?
Yeah, that was a good one. It's like Darwin Awards.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so listen, it is time to wrap things up here behind enemy lines. Lou Esposito, Red Nation Rising Radio, all the great things that you're doing. Thank you so much for filling in for my co-host Russ Gallo and taking one for the team here. I really greatly appreciate everything, and I look forward to my next adventure with Red Nation Rising Radio. You guys are doing an awesome job.
Oh, thanks so much, Gene. It's always a pleasure to get to talk to you, and thanks for having me on your show tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Everybody in the chat room, thanks for listening. Everybody out there in Radio Land, thank you for going behind enemy lines with us. It's time to shut things down here, and we are out of here. Next week, Value Voters Summit. Good night, folks.
Our position's been compromised. It's time to roll out. Report for debriefing at www.BehindEnemyLinesRadio.us and look for regular communications via Facebook and Twitter at BEL_radio. You are the resistance. Behind Enemy Lines. A Rock Radio production. Copyright 2015. Back in 7 days. Out.
The leader in talk radio on the internet. Right here on K98Talk.com.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. And then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-513-6154. That's 1-800-513-6154. Again, 1-800-513-6154. Call now.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.